Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the broadcast. My name is Justus Knight, and on today's broadcast, we're going to cover a presidential document that will change the very foundation of everything that is occurring in today's political landscape. I assure you of that. But before we get there, let's get started with just some of the amazing headlines that were published over the last 24 hours, starting with what you see on your screen right now. Senate has uncovered no direct evidence of conspiracy between Trump campaign and Russia. Wow. Never expected to see that one coming, now did we? But thank you for wasting taxpayer dollars. But my friends, I assure you, there is blood in the water, and this attack will not stop. It will not relent as they attack everyone surrounding Trump to assure somebody somewhere turned state evidence. Oh, the depravity of what we are illustrating to the world. And this, of course, resulted in the Trump tweet that we saw this weekend. Senator Richard Burr, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, just announced it after almost 2 years, more than 200 interviews and thousands of documents. They have found no collusion between Trump and Russia, but they came out after this and said, but that doesn't mean that you're completely off the hook. Very quickly into everyone is ignoring the most interesting result from Finland's basic income experiment. Okay, the headline got me hooked. I had to jump in. I had to see what the tree hugger should have been my first flag, had to talk about basic income, especially in Finland. So I just went down in the article. Let's start that the Finnish government gave 2,000 unemployed people each a check for 560 euros a month. Okay, so now we have the basis. So I went down a little bit further in the article. And what is this ideal? The idea goes like this. If a welfare recipient gets a job, they lose welfare, incentivizing them to stay unemployed. Now, they say down here in the blue, you'll see that this is a U.S. long-running idea. But what they actually determined in this study is that it didn't affect positively or negatively their employment status. That's a success. Because giving them income, basic income, didn't help them to achieve employment. So that's a success. This is the definition we have to be very cautious of when they start defining success on basic income and the larger agenda surrounding the entire initiative. Even when you read what could be perceived as a positive article, they still can't even provide positive news, except that America, you got it wrong. You see, it didn't make people not want to get a job. Actually, it didn't make people not want to get a job, and it didn't make people want to get a job. So who's wrong in that case? But nonetheless, we'll move on to this. The scary map shows how climate change will transform your city. We're back to global warming again, but again, got my curiosity, so I went to the link, and let's just go to the link together. A new interactive map, which is always exciting. It's going to show me everything that's happening in my area. What is your climate in your state going to feel like in 60 years? And I'll provide a link to this below, but let's just take one, Arizona. And of course, they're going to prove to me how in Arizona is going to feel different in 60 years. There we go. My climate is going to be like that in Esperanza, Mexico in 60 years. Cool. Okay, I'm done with that. And I'm going to run out of water, which we're going to cover here in a second. Because, I'm sorry, storm wallops millions from Seattle to Boston. West Coast braces for another onslaught of cold weather. Chicago deep freeze in the winter so far is top 5 in the charts. I digress because those headlines can't possibly be accurate. We're in the middle of the worst global warming ever. So let's go back to some honest people. Yet never. Kamala Harris says she listened to Snoop Dogg and Tupac while smoking weed in college years before they made music. That's a great start, Kamala. You're right on it. You're lying that you're doing the Bill Clinton. I didn't. Except this time she's saying, no, I did inhale. And, I was listening to Snoop Dogg and Tupac, but they weren't even making music back then. But trust me to be president. This is what happens when you try to gain the popular vote and you have absolutely the only agenda is to get elected, because let's not stand on honesty and principles and start demonstrating to the youth what that actually means, because that's lost in this country at this point in time. As long as I get elected, that's all that matters, no matter what I have to step on or lie to do it. What an amazing, amazing message we're sending to our youth. But let's continue. An amazing message. Remember the water supply in Arizona? It's going to dry up. Well, because Arizona really doesn't pull any water from its aquifers because it doesn't exist, or wells. So we have to bring in our water from the Colorado River and the Verde River and other places. It's a huge canal project. If you've ever flown over in a plane, you've seen it. But, the geniuses over at Nestle decide, let's start a water bottling facility in a place that doesn't have its own self-sustaining water, because that sounds like a genius idea. And it amazingly closes almost immediately after opening, because let's bottle the limited amount of water that we have after Arizona has actually done a phenomenal job at managing its water resources. Because further down the line from us would be Vegas and California. Well, we're all kind of bound by the same water flow in some ways. There's other ways to get the water in, but primarily that canal project I was talking about. But yet we're going to open a bottling facility. You know why they did it? The real crux of this is because water's cheap. And water, the most expensive part of water, is shipping it. So Nestle, again, big business, always concerned about profit first and people later. Let this serve as the perfect example to that. Decides let's open a facility. They don't say it directly. Actually, they don't say it at all in this article. But the fact it was going to lower their freight rates to shipping water to Phoenix and the surrounding market. That's all this has to do with. They didn't care about giving people jobs. They didn't care about our water supply. All they cared about is profit. And this is happening throughout the United States. I very rarely refer to one specific area because I am concerned about our country. But when it gives an example, I will point out a specific example just like this. Now, moving forward, SpaceX seeks FCC okay for 1 million satellite broadband Earth stations. I'm going to cover this a little bit deeper. It's actually a cool idea. A, because it's run by SpaceX. Now, I know a lot of you sit on either side of Elon Musk, but so far Elon Musk, for the most part, has not proven to completely hate our planet. He actually has some cool ideas. I happen to like this idea because it gets rid of the necessity, in some ways, for 5G. So you could pretty much be rest assured that everybody's going to be fighting against this project. I'm very curious to see how the FCC rules in that they are pushing 5G as quickly as they can, which I wish they wouldn't. And we're going to see how so I'm going to be watching this one very closely because SpaceX has this, as the article states, on an extremely ambitious timetable. What an amazing way to get internet without destroying us all, because yes, I've read the studies on 5G and I am not in favor of any implementation of the network whatsoever, bar none. There is no negotiating on this realm with 5G. But now we're going to start moving towards our headline feature. And this is a painful article to look at. 2 Parkland mothers now divided over guns. These mothers sit on opposite sides of the gun argument. And I bring this up because just yesterday we did the constitutional and the sheriff standing up for our rights to bear arms. And when we start to get into constitutional issues, no matter how painful personally they are, remember the countless amount of lives that have been given to stand for our country, those who have lost their lives, those who have been away from their families, those who are stationed overseas, those patriots that have stood arm in arm to protect our freedoms, to protect our Constitution, to protect our way of life. And it sickens me to see how it is treaded on every single day. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. Am I learning every day? Absolutely. But what we're about to cover here is going to open your eyes. So let's go to the next article, just knowing we're covering, and it was this article that started. It was Fox News, George Washington letter on God and the Constitution surfaces. It caught my interest. Anything from our founding fathers, from those who fought for this country. George Washington, the first Oval Office being his tent, because this man, a farmer, a fighter, who just gave everything to this country. The battles they must have seen, the bloodshed, the death. I cannot even fathom what they went through. but I respect the words of anyone from those times. And when they're talking about our Constitution, and this document here, so amazingly preserved. This is the Reb collection. It actually went back onto the auction block. Its purchase price right now is $140,000. That's where it's starting. But it was the words within this document that you need to listen to. And we're going to just thumb forward just a little bit. This was coming after the Constitution had just been ratified, and now there was an anti-federalist movement in Pennsylvania that was threatening a second convention because a lot of them didn't want the federalization. They wanted to remain independent states, much like what we're facing today. If you were to take this to be and he very clear, let's read his quote first. His quote says, "It would seem," let's thumb that up, I'm sorry. "It would seem from the public gazettes that the minority in your states are preparing for another attack of the now adopted government. How formidable it may be, I know not." This is coming from George Washington. "But that Providence, which has hitherto smiled on the honest endeavors of the well-meaning part of the people of this country, will not, I trust, withdraw its support from them at this crisis." Now, we dive in a little bit deeper into that statement. He knows the second convention's forming. He worries that the Constitution that he has fought tooth and nail to protect and to bind the United States together into the powerhouse it was going to become and has become was in jeopardy. Now, he uses the word providence, just so everybody knows, in place of God. And what was happening is these anti-federalists from Pennsylvania were buying up all the newspapers. They were buying them and starting to publicize their message against the Constitution. Does that sound eerily familiar to what's happening today? Through social media and the platforms of Facebook and Twitter that we cover so often, and YouTube suppressing conservative viewpoints because they have an agenda against the Constitution. They don't want to see it stand as it is, just like back in George Washington times. The same movement, history is repeating itself once again, and we have to be aware, we have to listen to the very people which founded this nation when they gave warnings. Prophetic warnings. And guess what? What was instrumental to George Washington? Let's read this one more time, just so we can fully understand what it says. "It would seem from the public gazettes, those that the Pennsylvania II was starting to build and buy up, that the minority, those anti-federalists, those anti-constitutionalists in your states, he's talking about Pennsylvania specifically, are preparing for another attack, which I feel, and we've seen the constant ongoing attack on our Constitution, of the now adopted government," referring directly to the Constitution of the United States of America as the direct attacks we see today. "How formidable it may be, I know not." And I don't believe any of us fully know the full impact and strength of what's coming. This globalist agenda against the nationalist agenda of America. How big is it? None of us may be able to wrap our arms around that concept. But that providence, so that God, which has hitherto smiled on the honest endeavors, God allowed the Constitution. He helped the people to pass the Constitution to protect this nation. This was the belief of George Washington. But we want to remove God from everything government. Do you start to see how just like any good historian will tell you, any good warfighter will tell you, any good general will tell you, you study the past to know how to attack the future. They've studied these. The honest endeavors of the well-meaning part of the people of this country, the American citizens, you and I, God will not, I trust, withdraw its support from them at this crisis. God will not leave us in this time of crisis. He helped us ratify the Constitution. He will help us protect the Constitution. It's why you hear so many of us drumming on this good versus evil when it comes to the constitutional battle, because even George Washington knew it was a battle of good versus evil, the protection of America. My friends, we cannot look past the very people that fought and gave their lives for this country. A farmer that fought for this great nation, created this great nation. So many great men followed in his path. And now it's our turn to protect the Constitution, to keep God within it. And yes, I am a constitutionalist through and through. And that's what keeps me going, is things like this, quotes like that, pulled from the past, this presidential document that should change our entire direction. Take the words of George Washington himself. My friends, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. If you did, I hope you'll subscribe. Most importantly, Godspeed and God bless. My name is Justus Knight. Until next time, signing out.